Well, we're inside a whale, folks. As it turns out, this is actually an actual whale, and they're actually inside it. And apparently, there is an island in its stomach, and a man named Crocus living there. I keep talking about the water there actually being stomach acid, but it seems like it's pretty mild stomach acid, considering how long they're there. If it is stomach acid, I found that confusing a little bit. I mean, I get that there were bones and stuff underneath the water or stomach acid, but I just kind of figured maybe the bones would be dissolved. I don't know, though. Perhaps not. I guess stomach acid doesn't necessarily dissolve bones. So maybe that doesn't make sense. Still, we do meet Crocus, but we also end up meeting Mystery Man, Mr. Nine, and Mystery Woman, Miss Wednesday. This will come into play shortly. So yeah, this is where we start to get multiple storylines going on, because we have Luffy off on his own trying to figure out where he's inside the whale, but trying to figure out where or what's going on. We have the rest of the crew of the Go Merry in the stomach meeting Crocus, and then you got these two mystery people showing up to do whatever it is they're going to want to do. There's a door, an exit in the stomach wall, apparently, to get out of the whale. And before that, there's a whole like moment with a Neptunian squid, a like squid monster, which is sort of how they really get to know Crocus. Crocus swims in the stomach acid at one point, but he's fine. Is it stomach acid? I feel like it's not totally confirmed, but we are definitely in a whale, so in its stomach apparently, so it would make sense. Luffy and the strangers show up in the stomach at roughly the same time. You find out this guy Crocus is actually kind of trying to tranquilize the whale from the inside, which is interesting to keep him calm, because he's just hitting his head against. Well, this whale's name is Laboon, first of all, according to the manga or the translation of the manga. So Laboon. I guess that's kind of like lagoon, but Laboon. Is there another name for him in the anime? Is that the same name from the Japanese? I don't know. So they tranquilize the whale to stop him from bashing his head against the side of the I guess it's the side of the mountain, or the red was it the red line? I haven't caught up with a lot of the terms for rock wall that separates the world's seas. He's like bashing his head against it over and over again. I guess the seas are separated by rock walls. That's very difficult. I mean, it's hard to imagine. Sort of like a pie chart or something, right? I don't know. How does that work? Anyway, the whale calms down, and we find out this guy is protecting the whale. Don't yet know why. And then it turns out these two mystery people are here to take the whale. For food, as it turns out, actually. They get stopped. Luffy stomps on them, which is pretty funny. When they drop something that gets picked up, which comes into play in a moment. And we also get the backstory of the whale, I think, at this point. Yeah. It turns out he came with a group of pirates that left him there and said they'd come back for him, which is why he's sitting there waiting at the bottom of the mountain, because the way they would have to come back is they have to travel a whole grand line and leave and then come back through. So that's where they would be coming back. So that location makes sense, as it turns out. As we do eventually learn here, that was 50 years ago, so it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but this whale won't give up. He still thinks his friends are coming back. He's just crying. Whale's just crying and beating his head against mountains and rock walls. It's a sad whale. It's a sad whale. Get out of the whale, basically, long story short. The mystery people kind of threaten them that they'll be back and disappear. And they get the rest of the backstory about the whale. big conversation between Luffy's crew and Crocus. You get a backstory about Crocus trying to teach the whale that he needs to let go, but he won't. And basically this all leads to Luffy figuring out how to get the whale, how to sort of ease the whale's suffering, actually, in a way. Yeah, the red line, that's what the rock wall is, I guess. It keeps bashing its head around. So let's just say Luffy gets the whale's attention and he fights the whale. And I guess it kind of the whale, I guess, gains respect for him. And Luffy decides to try to use this to give the whale a sense of purpose by declaring him the whale's rival. And he's like, now you have a rival and we're going, but we will be back and we'll fight again. And so now the whale isn't like lost in some vain hope that's never going to come around. Now the whales can hope for someone to return who might actually return, right? So I guess he just sort of makes the whale happy. They get the whale basically to stop beating its head against the red line or the rock wall or the mountain, the things that separate the oceans. He leaves his mark on the front of the whale. This obvious, I mean, I look forward to wherever this goes eventually, hopefully. Then they get into this whole conversation about how you navigate the red line, because normal compasses don't work, and they went in there without the right kind. And then they realized that the mystery people dropped theirs, so they pick that up, but then promptly break it. And I guess Crocus ends up seeing something in Luffy, which there's a little hint at, that maybe Crocus knows Roger, or knew Roger. It sounds like he's even talking to him or something, but speaking to him, you know, and gives him his compass. And for some reason, they even agree to take these mystery people with them, because they're stuck now without any way of navigating. So they decide to go to their island, which is where this next arc begins. They say goodbye to the whale. They make their way through the treacherous Grand Line and almost get turned around and almost don't make it, but they get to an island of giant cactuses. This is, of course, Whisky Peak, which is where these other two mystery characters are from. And I believe this is where we ultimately, I mean, I read the next couple chapters. They take in the pirates, they feed them, they make them happy, but they're upset because they really wanted that whale to feed themselves for the next long period of time. They didn't get that. And it turns out they're a bunch of mercenaries, I believe called the Baroque Works. I think that's, yeah, Baroque Works. So that's where that term comes from. They don't realize it initially, but they had tried to recruit Zoro in the past, and so he sort of restrained himself in the partying, and gets, you know, while the rest of the crew is all like totally incapacitated from overeating and overdrinking, Zoro begins to fight them and begins to test out his new swords. And that's really where this leaves off. In the middle of, or right after that starts, and Zoro's doing well, and he's ready to take it to the end. So we'll see where this goes. But there was a lot in here, and I really enjoyed the explanation of how the Grand Line works. I guess they're showing that red line go through the middle of the Grand Line. I don't know that I fully understand how that works either. But my favorite stuff here is sort of how they basically ended up befriending the whale and giving the whale something to hope for that might actually come to pass. to get him to stop beating himself to death. And then I really enjoyed the explanation of the Grand Line and how you have to navigate from island to island. And they also bring up what the Raftel, I think, is like the last island. So obviously, on some level, that's the goal, because possibly the treasure's there, right? Possibly. So the One Piece. They don't know that for sure, but it just seems like an obvious place to check. So I feel like it gives us another long-term goal, because we had the Grand Line as a long-term goal for a long time, and now that they're in the Grand Line, they've established a new long-term goal. We'll see if we get there, how we get there, and undoubtedly it will be something unexpected resulting from it. So that's the end of Volume 12, and I'll keep reading and keep making videos. See you in the next video piece.